Adrenal gland. The adrenal gland secretes steroid hormone. It is divided into two parts, the cortex and the medulla. The cortex consists of zona glomerulosa, which produces aldosterone, zona fasciculata, and zona reticularis. Zona fasciculata produces cortisols as well as reticularis produces androgens, and the medulla, which produces catecholamine, which we'll see further. Let's get a summary or an overview about what you are going to learn. This is going to come very handy, so pay attention to this. The adrenal gland is divided into the cortex and the medulla. The cortex is stimulated by ACTH. These are adrenocorticotrophic hormones. It is divided into three parts. GFR. You can remember it by the mnemonic GFR, like GFR and the kidney. G stands for glomerulosa, which produces aldosterone, which is a type of mineralocorticoids. How to remember this? Adrenal aldosterone helps in the absorption of minerals such as sodium, potassium. Okay. The fasciculata is reduces the cortisol, which is a type of glucocorticoid. How to remember it? It increases blood glucose levels. That is why it is known as glucocorticoid. These both are synthesized from cholesterol. Last but not least is the reticularis, which produces androgens, which are known as gonadocorticoids. Then comes the medulla. M for medulla, M for monoamines. It produces monoamines. These are adrenaline, noradrenaline, epinephrine, norepinephrine. It produces catecholamines and it has a disease manifestation known as a pheochromocytoma, that is, tumor of the adrenal gland. Now let's look at the cortex first and the medulla next. The cortex, as we know, it is divided into three parts: GFR, zona glomerulosa, zona fasciculata, and zona reticularis. The zona glomerulosa, it produces aldosterone. So let's see aldosterone. First of all, what are the stimulants? Its main stimulant is angiotensin 2 and low sodium level in blood and high potassium level in blood, and ACTH. What low sodium and low potassium level in blood does is decreases the BP. Decrease in BP is sensed by the kidney as it decreases the GFR and it stimulates the JG cells. The JG cell release renin. Renin plays a pivotal role in the conversion of angiotensinogen into angiotensin 1. This angiotensin 1 is converted into angiotensin 2 by ACE. What is ACE? ACE is angiotensin converting enzyme. As it converts angiotensin 1 to 2, so hence the name suggests angiotensin converting 1 to 2 converting enzyme. It is an enzyme, so enzyme. It is present in the lungs. Aldosterone is synthesized from cholesterol. What all this stimulant does is that it lets this cholesterol enter the cells of the cortex. What aldosterone does, it binds to globulin and then it circulates in the blood. Aldosterone itself does not goes into blood. Action of aldosterone, it works on the DCT. Aldosterone works only and only on the DCT. What it does, as aldosterone is a steroid, it crosses the cell membrane and acts directly on the DNA. On the DNA, it leads to the formation of mRNA, then proteins. These proteins are very special proteins. These lead to formation of sodium and potassium channel proteins. What they do is they let the influx of sodium and outflux of potassium via using energy from the ATP pump. This is zona glomerulosa. Next comes the zona fasciculata. This zona fasciculata, it releases cortisol. Cortisol in its function is vice versa to that of thyroid. So these have very contrary functions. About 100% of the cortisol, 25% is bound to the albumin and 75% is bound to the globulin. Its main stimulants are hypoglycemia, low blood sugar level. It makes our body go into stress and hence release of cortisol. It is also released during long-term stresses such as fasting and high adrenocorticotropic releasing hormones. Its effect on liver, like cortisol, its effects on the liver is it leads to formation of glucose as main stimulus is hypoglycemia. So its work is to increase the blood glucose level. So it acts on the liver, which converts glycogen into glucose and hence increases blood glucose level. Second, it acts on the muscles. Cortisol, it cuts the muscles proteins. Cortisol cuts the protein. Hence, from the protein, it releases lactic acid, which releases amino acids. It also acts on the bones and cuts the bone and releases amino acids. These amino acids are sent into the liver for the formation of glucose. This formation of glucose from other than glycogen is known as gluconeogenesis, new formation of glucose. Then is adipose tissue. Cortisol cuts the adipose tissue and leads the triglycerides leads to formation of the fatty acids as well as the glycerols. These also contribute to the formation of glucose by gluconeogenesis. Cortisol inhibits the insulin. So what it does is in the presence of insulin, glucose gets into the cell, but as cortisol inhibits the insulin, glucose cannot get into the cell. Hence, it is in blood and increases blood glucose level. Cortisol also stimulates norepinephrine, which stimulates vasoconstriction and hence increases BP, as its one of its stimulants was also low BP. Now, one peculiar thing about cortisol is it directly lead to glycogenesis, means formation of glycogen directly, but indirectly it leads to formation of glycogenolysis. What is glycogenolysis? Formation of glucose from substrates other than glycogen. How? By increasing sensitivity toward androgenic receptors such as norepinephrine, which we saw right now, and it stimulates norepinephrine to release glycogen into glucose. Effect on the immune system. It actually decreases our immunity. It works on the WBC and decreases basophil, lymphocyte, and monocyte. That's why we have learned that while we are in stretch, our immunity seems to go down. While there is an exam approaching, more children fall sick. It is because of this. The stress actually harms our immune system. Now we have seen the zona GF. Now comes the R, zona reticularis. Zona reticularis releases gonadocorticoids. There are two mainly gonadocorticoids, DHEA, I used to call it DHEA, and aldosterone. It is not ando, aldosterone, it is aldosterone dione. It works on both male and female. It helps in the development of secondary sexual characters. For example, in males, it leads to formation of testosterone. It increases their libido and hair growth in axial and pubic area. Whereas in females also, it leads to the formation of estrogen, increases their libido and increases their hair growth. Now let's look at its clinical